Well, there are two things on this F100 that annoy the piss out of me. One of them I fixed, which is the brake pedal, and the other is the ignition switch, which I can't fix. And after the break, we're going to be talking about ignition switches in Fords and musing over why they put the ignition switch on the left-hand side of the steering column for the trucks and some of the passenger cars. And no, I don't have an answer. I'm asking you the question. Why?
Restoration of a classic Ford is a journey of discovery. Let Autocrafters help you with yours. We offer quality parts for Falcon, Fairlane, F-Series, Galaxy, Maverick, and Pinto. Contact us today.
So you know now that I am really annoyed by the left-hand ignition switch in my F100. It's also in my 63 Galaxy. Perversely in 64, they moved it to the right-hand side of the column. I am even tempted to try to get 1964 trim pieces and move the ignition switch over to where I'm used to, because every other vehicle I own that has a dash-mounted ignition switch is on the right-hand side, with the exception of the Galaxy and my F100 pickup truck. And I'm always getting into the truck, just like I showed you, where I'm grabbing the keys in my right hand and I'm unlocking the door with my right hand, and I get into the truck with the keys in my right hand, and then I'm switching them to my left hand so I can start the truck. It drives me crazy. It really does. It absolutely drives me nuts. Why did you do it, Ford? Why? So you think, well, maybe Ford just did this all along. It was always on the left side and that's what Ford did. Nah, not even close. The Model A cars, the ignition switch was on the gauge panel in the center of the vehicle on the dash, and the ignition switch was on the left-hand side of that gauge panel. Okay, you think, well, maybe right after that they did it. Nah, they didn't. All the way up from 1941 to 48, all the ignition switches were then on the column down at the collar where it's right at the dash panel. So in other words, they actually had a column ignition switch in the earlier Fords. It didn't start in 1970. They actually had a column ignition switch down there. But all of these vehicles right up until 1951 were all where you would turn the key on and you would press a button or hit a foot pedal in order to start the vehicle. There was no turnkey ignition like you might think. Starting in 1951, Ford went to the key turn start system on their cars. Basically, it's what we know as our modern ignition key system on cars today. You take the key, you stick it in the ignition, and you turn it, and the car will start. Gone was the button or the foot pedal for it, and Ford made a big deal out of all that. They made a big deal of talking about the key turn start system, but they had no words to say at all about why they moved that ignition switch to the left-hand side of the steering column. Complete blank on that. I went through the entire 1951 brochure thinking that since it was a new thing, they would mention it. Nah, they didn't. Now, Ford really liked this system. They stayed with it from 1951 till 1963 on the passenger cars, and then the pickup trucks kept it until 1972 on the F100, F250, and F350. But the F500 and F600, those suckers kept it around until 1979. Not one to want to change a stamping, are we, Ford? So what's the idea, Ford? Why? Why stay with something like that that's annoying to about 80% of the people on the planet, especially up through the more recent years when they made everybody, even if you were a lefty, become a righty, whether you liked it or not. You were made to be a right-handed person. So everybody's walking around with their keys in their right hand. I'm sorry I'm obsessing. I'll stop. Now, some of you smart car guys that do a lot of other things other than Ford will look at this and say, yes, but Porsche, they did that because they needed that one extra millisecond that they could pick up from having the ignition switch on the left-hand side of the column because of racing. It's not true. I'm going to read you a little something that I found in the Wall Street Journal by Dan Neal. It's a piece that he did talking about why the ignition switch is on the left-hand side of the Porsche 911, and it's really nothing to do with performance or racing at all. Porsche Museum curator, 1993 to 2011, and keeper of the keys, Klaus Bischoff, explained that this placement had nothing to do with racing. In the early post-war period, when the company amounted to a mere handful of men hammering and welding in an old sawmill, electrical wire was scarce. Putting the switch on the left saved a little bit of wire and a bit of money. That's it. It was all about saving money. It had nothing to do with racing at all. But Porsche thought, man, what the heck? People are going to say that. I'm not going to argue with them because we've got a performance thing to live up to. Could it be that Ford did the same thing? They felt like they could save a little bit of money on wire on that 51 Ford, so they moved the ignition switch to the left-hand side to save $1 per vehicle? $1 per every 10 vehicles? I don't know. Again, please leave a comment in the section below if you know the answer. If you don't know the answer, you can still leave a comment in the section below. But this has been driving me nuts for a couple of weeks. I've actually called people on this. So I found a comment on the forums, and I'm going to read this to you as well. This one is back from around 2010. Someone asked the same question in a Ford truck forum as to why Ford put the ignition switches on the left-hand side of the steering column. So I'm going to read it for you. Having the ignition switch on the left side of the dash was, at one time, a convenience. After unlocking the left door, the same key could be easily placed in the ignition cylinder. At one time, there were no left door lock cylinders on passenger cars or trucks. People unlocked the right door, then slid across the seat. Back then, the switch was conveniently located to the right of the column. 1951 was the first year Ford offered a left door lock cylinder on trucks, but only on the 5-star deluxe cabs. All 1953 and later custom cabs have it, but it was an option on standard cabs through 1961. So that's it. That one comment was it. Outside of the Klaus Bischoff comment for Porsche, nada. But somebody out there knows, and if you guys can come up with that information and get it to me in a timely manner, I will give someone who has done this a t-shirt like the one I'm wearing. But it has to be verifiable. It has to be from a source. It can't be just you saying my friend's dog's brother's cat talked to the neighbor kid and he told me. No. You have to give me sources. You have to give me people I can call and talk to get one of these shirts that's in your size. I don't care if it's a 4XL, I'm willing to pay. Also, go out and check out I don't know where I'm going with all this stuff. Go out and check out our Patreon account. At the $10 a month level, you have monthly meetings with me on Zoom, and that's us sitting and conversing back and forth. That's not just me pontificating in your face and telling you things about how wonderful I am, which I'm not all that wonderful. Be that as it may, we do tech questions back and forth. If you have tech questions, it's a great place to get to know me and get to see what we do on a daily basis. We give insider stuff that you don't normally get to see on the show. So we talk about a lot of different things. Also, go out and subscribe to the channel, please. We're on our way to 100,000 subscribers. I'm back on that track again because it's annoying me that we've kind of slowed down the subscriber movement. Get people to subscribe that watch this kind of stuff. I don't want people who are just like going to subscribe to help me get to the numbers. Don't give a crap about that. I want people who watch the show. So tell folks about it. Have them ring that bell. If you don't ring that bell, you'll never be notified of anything we do on this channel, and that will be a crying shame for you. So, with all that being said, and all my questions not being answered by anything on the internet or anything I could read in a book that I have here, and believe me, I have quite a few books, you guys do me a favor, be nice to each other, be kind to each other, love on each other, have a great week, and we'll see you on down the road. I really wanted to know. I mean, it has really bugged me. Phone calls have been made to people that I felt were highly placed enough that I could get that information and throw it right out there to you today. Nobody knows. And if they know, they're not saying. If they're not saying, maybe there's a conspiracy afoot. Get your tinfoil hats, folks. It's gonna get messy. Have a great week.